My name is Richard Searby-Bates. I have been at RouteNote for about 4 years. I work as part of the moderation team. My background is in tour management. I was a sound engineer in a local venue and a touring sound engineer for many years. The tour management I did took me around Europe and the States, and also I was part of different production companies. So like I worked with theatre, rock and roll shows, dance music and all of that sort of thing. Basically, jack of all trades and someone to call in last minute quite often, if it was needed. When I first started playing as an actual musician, we're talking sort of early to mid 90s. So there was a lot of flyering and postering and actual face-to-face walking from venue to venue and putting in legwork. I'd say the biggest change that we noticed was probably around 2005, 2006, where all of a sudden, everybody started jumping on MySpace and all of those different platforms. And, that definitely revolutionized where we were at, because I went from sort of being somebody who put on a lot of parties and a lot of my own events, and then I was sought out by people further afield. I ended up working for companies who were based in London and Birmingham and booking more international tours at that point, being given more responsibility. My biggest piece of advice to anyone starting out: I came from a group of people. We were all quite misfits. We played pretty alternative music, wasn't essentially fitting for all kinds of venues. We struggled, when we started. But what we decided to do, most part, is actually in line with the ethics of RouteNote here. We did it ourselves. We just went, what? We don't need anyone to start with. Let's make a big noise about ourselves. Let's book our own venue. Let's move our own things into the venue. Let's advertise it like it's a party and we want you to come. And we would inspire people to come to our shows in that way. And that really worked for us. Once it got around, and once people saw that people were showing up and having a good time, that was when promoters started looking at us. We didn't have to do so much legwork then. People would come to us and say, oh, hey, do you want to put something on with us? Because we see that you're making money, or we see that you're dragging people along. If there's people who do things in the area in which you're working or live, and you want to get involved in those things, really good way of getting people on board, or getting people to notice you: organize your own event, book somewhere, get a little sound system in there, network, drag people in, collaborate with people. And then once you've got your date booked, go and invite everybody that you want to impress, anyone that you want to work with, anyone that you want to book you, anyone that you want to work with in the studio. Just invite people, but invite them in a way where they feel like they're going to come to something fun. You're going to show them a good time, and then hopefully they'll come and they will have a good time, and then they'll invite you to play the things that you wanted to play. It's easy when you first start out as a musician who wants to either tour or even play just local shows. It's easy just to head into it wanting to impress and kind of just make everybody believe you're the next best thing and this is going to happen. And confidence is really good. But I think one thing that's really good to learn early on is if you try to obfuscate the truth in any way, or you paint a more elaborate picture of who you are than what is true, you'll quickly get found out. So I've just found the best way really was to be super honest, try to come across as likable, and just don't tell any fibs, just be yourself. And the chances are that you'll get given a chance. If people think they can work with you and that you'll be easy to work with and likable, and you'll not come in with any crazy demands early on, the chances are they'll give you a shot. And that's normally the best way to go, I would say. It's pretty easy these days to put together a really, really great electronic press kit. I'd just say keep it concise, keep the creative speak to a minimum. Obviously put yourself out there as an artist, but you want to make it snappy. Like, people are really, they don't have much time. They just want to see who you are, honestly. So we would put together things in such a way, but also as an agent or a promoter myself in the past, that's what I would want to see. And if you hear from somebody quite often, actually I never got annoyed with anybody contacting me again and again and again. Mostly what I wanted to see, if I was booking for a venue or booking for any tours or looking for supports for larger artists, I would want to see progression. So each time I would get some sort of press kit from somebody, if I'd seen them before, I'd want to see something added to that. I'd be like, oh, well, they're not just stood still, they're doing something extra. So I would say never be afraid to reach out as many times as you want. If you want something, people want to know that you want it and want it bad. But make sure that you're not just sending the same thing out every time, because I think that says more about what you're not doing than what you are doing. I think whatever you can do to stand out very specifically to whatever you want to achieve or to whatever people you're trying to contact, if you can stand out in any way to them and become unique, then that's got to be a win. So if you have a basic structure for an EPK, you can send that out to people. Then certainly if you're applying to a festival, you might want to talk about the best festival experiences that you've had. Keep it brief and just attract people's attention with small concise pieces of information that help you to come off as natural and show that you just want to be yourself. If you're applying to say a big metal festival or something, then it's important to show that side of what you do. Quite a lot of artists, they might be involved in several different projects. If you were using the same thing to promote yourself on each platform, then it just wouldn't work, because different things are going to interest people at somewhere like Download Festival to somebody at Glastonbury. It's just not going to work the same way for both of them. So show the best of yourself and the best of what you've got, but tailor making something towards something that you really want. There's certainly nothing wrong with showing people just how much you want it. You want what it is that they've got to offer, really passionately. Stage fright and nerves are a good thing. I mean, that's a bit of a cliche to say sometimes, because I know a lot of people say that and think, oh my God, no, how can being nervous be a good thing? But nerves is energy, and if you put that energy into a good place, then people just see it as you being genuine. And so try not to be frightened of being frightened. Just get stuck in, that's the way to do it. The first time I ever played Glastonbury was a tour manager, and the client that I was working with fell poorly. They became poorly the day of the show. So the lead guitar player needed somebody to step in. I had about 2.5 hours to sit down with a couple of other members of the band and learn the guitar parts. 2.5 hours later, I stepped out on stage, and performed. And that was, that was quite frightening. But if you just throw yourself and really truly give yourself to any situation, I think people will just work with you and smile with you if you're not trying to fake it. I mean, there was quite a few times on that journey where I looked at people and were like, I don't know what I'm doing. But then you kind of find your feet and get on with it, and people just appreciate it. I like to think people appreciate people being genuine. The minute that curtain goes back, or you step beyond the barrier and you're there and the music starts, all of a sudden those butterflies, they fly away, or they turn into stage energy. And working in touring or engineering studios or any of the things that I did, really, if you wanted constant sustainable employment, it became really important to be a little bit of a jack of all trades. If you know a little bit about everybody's job, then you'll never be out of work. And if you can apply yourself to a bunch of different roles, then that's a real plus. You can work with crews that are small or big crews. The bigger crews that I worked with, I tended to be just part of the crew as opposed to leading it. The smaller crews, that I worked with, I was quite often, the tour manager or the go-to guy. Either way, I think each position can have its merits. You can work as part of a big team. That can be exciting. It can be inspiring because you're looking up the ladder at people who are doing amazing things, whether it's lighting or logistics or anything like that. It can be really inspiring to sort of see people who are ahead of you in the game. When you're working with small crews, it can become very personal, and you can gain deep friendships, and you really learn to lean and rely on the people that you work with, trust them, pretty much in any circumstances, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you're working a show or if you're on the road or anything like that. The best way you can stand out is to come across as professional and easy to fit in. Somebody who's going to be just good fun to work with, or, the audience that you're trying to fill the room with are just going to enjoy being in their presence. So if you can put your personality into what you do, and if you can make that personality attractive to an audience, then just try and showcase that in the best possible way, because gimmicks and they can be great, but nothing beats just a good honest, because it's about the music after all.